Welcome to the night section. The man, the machine, the industry are all code words commonly used to describe music executives. Now, we focus a lot on artists and what they bring to the table, yet we fail to talk about the people who oversee everything, the ones not heavily publicized or really talked about in the mainstream media. The same people that for a long time before social media dictated the music that would be pushed on a global scale. And on the other hand, the music that would never see the light of day. The puppeteers, if you will, that still influence the music and artists we hear about today. And one of those executives is Lyor Cohen.
I don't pay attention.
People feel like you broke up Roc-a-fella. That's what they say. You got in Jay's ear and told him get away from Dame.
I think you got to talk to Jay and Dame and Biggs, Tata, you know. I don't know what to say to that. So I always have an expression. You say we're friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, man, you gave a shitty interview. And you said, man, I thought we were friends. We're not friends any longer. You know what I say? We were never friends in the first place. If we can't survive that.
100%.
So if their partnership couldn't survive, then what's, how could, if it was me or anybody else?
No outside influence should be able to break
that
up.
Now, before we get into any controversy, a brief background on Lyor. Lyor Cohen is an American music executive born in New York City, New York on October 3rd, 1959, to Israeli immigrants. He's now been in the music industry for well over 30 years, and regardless of how you personally feel about him, he's made waves. How Lyor got into the music industry, some would say, was a stroke of luck, or rather divine timing, because Lyor originally went to college in LA after moving back to the US from Israel, studying global marketing, then went to Ecuador to actually pursue a shrimp farming business. Those plans fell through, and upon his return to LA, he worked at a bank. So he definitely wasn't managing artists at this time or running a label. One day, however, while still working at his bank gig, he came across a huge bright flyer that read Uncle Jam's Army. A week later, it read Uncle Jam's Army at the sports arena, further detailing the time and date of an event. The Uncle Jam's Army was a group of LA-based DJs, and at the time were hosting one of the first hip-hop shows in the West Coast. Keep in mind, this was in the early 80s. Lyor's curiosity got the better of him, and he took a chance and said why not, and decided to attend the event. At the time, he stuck out like a sore thumb because he was the only white person there. But he could not help but be absolutely enthralled by the music that he heard. So when there was another event, he would go again and again. Eventually, Uncle Jam's Army started bringing rappers, or rather MCs, to the sports arena, and that's when Lyor had the bright idea that he could do the same thing, but better. Him throwing his own party and booking the same acts that he saw at the sports arena, but in a different location with a new audience. Now, driving in his own neighborhood of Los Feliz, he comes across a rundown building known as the Stardust Ballroom, a famous venue known to have hosted many punk rock shows. He talked to the new owner of the building and was able to rent out the space for his first event. His first show was in 1984, which included acts such as the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Run DMC, and Ice-T, and the rest is essentially history. Now, within a few months, he became Run DMC's road manager, working under Russell Simmons at that time, and started working himself up the ranks and building a solid business reputation for his no-nonsense approach, his directness, negotiation skills, etc. Fast forward to the late 80s, and up until today, frankly, Lyor Cohen has had his hand in the careers of practically everyone who's been relevant in the past 30 plus years. As early as Curtis Blow to Big Daddy Kane and Run DMC, where he, along with Russell Simmons, actually pioneered a lot of the music marketing strategies still used by labels today. From road manager to becoming an artist manager for Rush Productions, to then focusing on the label side of things, helping build Def Jam, to then later becoming the president of Def Jam for 10 years. Let's not also forget that within that time, he's worked alongside Roc-a-Fella Records, Murder Inc., and led the growth of artists such as Jay-Z, Redman, DMX, Ja Rule, and the list goes on and on. He not only cultivated and worked with artists within hip-hop, he then later expanded to genres such as pop, rock, and R&B, as he became, in his own words, quote, the first hip-hop president in charge of a major label, being named co-president of Island Def Jam Records in 1998. According to Wikipedia, quote, in June 1998, after the Polygram Universal merger, Island, Mercury, and Def Jam were merged into a new unit called the Island Def Jam. Cohen was named co-president, end quote. Now, Lyor was cultivating and working with artists such as Mariah Carey, Shania Twain, Nickelback, Ashanti, and the list goes on. He then moved from Island Def Jam to being the chairman and CEO of Warner Music Group, and from Warner Music Group to being a co-founder of the independent 300 Entertainment label, and is now the global head of music for YouTube since 2016. Now, there's no question that Lyor Cohen has done a lot for hip-hop in the mainstream sense, but there's been quite a few people that have felt otherwise and think that he has done the opposite and has taken from it. Here are just a few of his controversies. And these are not all, but these are the controversies that have particularly stood out to me and have led a lot of people to believe that he is indeed an evil puppeteer. Number 1, Dame Dash and Roc-a-Fella Records.
My beef was with Lyor because I think he's a fake CEO and I think he's fronting on my culture, but he can't front on anybody else. And I'm calling him out publicly and I want him to stop trying to rape my culture. Go make some money with some other people. Like, stop having your agenda be hip hop. Like when Joey was like, our agenda to open up Asylum was to go, it didn't say nothing about going to get no rock and roll. It was go to get people that they don't even care about and make money from them. Yeah, just get money in their culture. Let them do it. Let's let the violence stay there. Let's benefit from the violence and not bring in, like, you know what I mean? It was like they have people that their job is to create beef so that they can monetize it, pause. But they don't let their culture feel it. But they make money from it. And they can't make any money or get any respect in their culture. That's why they're in our culture. Because the minute that they were allowed to be there, they would go. But they just can't. You know, the question should be, why don't you do something besides rap?
Dame Dash has been known to refer to Lyor Cohen as a culture vulture. If you guys don't know the beef between these two, or rather the one-sided beef on Dame Dash's end, it leads all the way back to the days of Roc-a-Fella Records and the partnership Roc-a-Fella had with Def Jam, where Lyor was the president at that time. Most of you guys know that eventually Jay-Z, Biggs, and Dame split up and that was the end of Roc-a-Fella, but Dame Dash puts a lot of the blame on Lyor Cohen, alleging that it was his fault being in Jay-Z's ear and also just in general appropriating and stealing from the culture. By the way, I'll have a video on Dame Dash soon on what I really think about the Roc-a-Fella situation. Number 2, the 360 deal. If you didn't know, Lyor Cohen was and still is a huge advocate for the 360 deal. For those of you guys who don't know what a 360 deal is, in simple terms, it's basically when an artist signs a contract with a record label, and within that agreement, the label agrees to provide all-around financial or marketing support in every aspect of their career. According to Wikipedia, this would include things like touring, merchandise, promotion, etc. And in exchange, the artist agrees to allow the label to take a cut on all of their streams of income, meaning they get a piece of everything. This ensures that the label gets some sort of return on their investment and incentivizes the label to actually push the artist, because the more money the artist makes, the more money they make. Back in the day, if you failed or didn't sell, they would just shelve you and you wouldn't ever see the light of day again because you were losing the money. So in theory, this deal structure is supposed to make everybody happy, but obviously, as we all know, the 360 deal, at least among the rap industry a lot of the time, hasn't. The 360 deal has an all-around, no pun intended, bad rep for good reason. A lot of artists who hear that sign a 360 deal lose their creative control because the label wants to maximize profit and want to market you in a way that they think will generate money. A lot of artists go broke because the little money that they make is basically being taken by the label with nothing left over for them. It's usually newer artists that are susceptible to signing this type of deal because they don't have much leverage. The point is that the perception in most people's minds is that Lyor Cohen promoting or rather endorsing the 360 deal just feeds into the narrative that executives and higher ups like Lyor are only in it for profit and want to exploit artists. Number 3, signing artists who promote drug use. In an interview with The Breakfast Club back in 2018, Lyor Cohen said something very contradicting, where he said, and this is not verbatim, but he said that he's the type of guy to call rappers out on their drug habits because he doesn't want to be complicit. If he sees a rapper with a cup as an example, which we would assume would have lean in it, he would tell them it is liquid H. And he goes on to acknowledge that there is an opiate problem and that it is dangerous. But then when asked again if he would work with an artist or sign that artist that has that drug problem, knowing that it's such a big issue, he says this.
Our society.
So why sign an artist that would promote that?
Because I already answered that question. You weren't paying attention. She asked me talent or issues, and I said talent. But I have to. I can't give up on people.
But I'm saying that's hypocritical, though. You're saying the
it's
opioid problem's a problem.
opportunistic. Yeah. I got people to feed. I got a business to run.
You're gonna make Dame Dash take this clip and call you a culture vulture.
Understandably, we can see why people would assume that Lyor is an evil guy, or that he's been planted by the government to take advantage of the black community and just in general, the entire conspiracy surrounding him. But to answer the question, knowing this, and again, these are just a few controversies that I listed, is Lyor Cohen really hip-hop's evil puppet master? I personally don't think so, and let me give you guys just a different perspective as to why. Number 1, the narrative that he's a culture vulture. I completely disagree with this narrative because looking back, it's been recorded that he started in the trenches, being on the ground from his short stint of being a promoter to being a road manager for Run DMC for 3.5 years, and then artist manager to a label executive, working his way up. Not to mention, he was literally there since the beginning of having talks about hip-hop being mainstream. We're talking about the 80s, before hip-hop was even profitable on a global scale. He helped hip-hop artists gain mass appeal. So it's silly to really think that he's a culture vulture. We need to stop claiming that every single white person in hip-hop is just automatically that. Number 2, not all 360 deals are created equally. As much as we hear about the 360 deal being worse than the actual devil, every 360 deal is not bad, and not all 360 deals are made equal. Artists like J. Cole or Beyonce, as an example, have greatly benefited from the 360 deal. I mean, look at the careers they have today. Perhaps we can argue that those are the exceptions to the rule, and that's fair. However, even Jay-Z signed a 360 deal. In an article written by Jarek D. Kennedy from the LA Times back in 2017, quote, Jay-Z and Live Nation will continue their long-standing partnership with the superstar, signing a new 10-year touring deal, the two announced Thursday. The agreement, reportedly worth $200 million, will see Live Nation continue to produce and promote the mogul's live events. In 2008, the two partnered for a decade-long agreement that saw the entertainment company offer Jay-Z a deal that covered 3 albums, publishing, and other business ventures, known commonly as a 360 deal, along with the launch of his Roc Nation imprint. The new deal will focus solely on his touring efforts, although the rapper and Live Nation will remain equity partners in Roc Nation, end quote. This means that from 2008 to about 2017, Jay-Z was in a 360 deal with Live Nation, which accounted for his publishing, recordings, touring, and other business ventures. In the case of Jay-Z, because he is Jay-Z, he has leverage. He has a level of star power that basically guarantees that with everything he does, or whoever he works with, money will be made. So this deal actually worked in his favor and was seen as an opportunity to develop a partnership, especially when starting his Roc Nation imprint. The deal that he currently has with Live Nation only accounts for his touring, so that probably doesn't count as a 360, but it's interesting how the dynamic changes depending on who's signing the 360 deal. So no, not all 360 deals are bad. Number 3, promoting substance use is popular music. Now, Lyor got flack because in the Breakfast Club interview, he basically admits that he'll still sign artists promoting the use of substances in their music, even though it does appear as opportunistic. So my response is that, hey, if Lyor doesn't sign said artist, somebody else probably will. And it's just the fact at this point that substance use and music go hand in hand. It's been like this since the beginning of the music industry. The way people are going about it in their lyrics might be different, but nonetheless, people will talk about their experiences. And if that includes substance abuse, I think people should still be able to talk about it because they have the creative license as artists. It's a double-edged sword, I know, and kids listen to that music, but we can't censor artists. And frankly, it's not Lyor's fault that it's what the people want to hear. When do we also hold the consumer accountable? Well, anyways, what do you guys think? Is Lyor hip-hop's evil puppet master, or is he just a good businessman? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Night section.